Hello and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about how to handle conflict with a conflict avoidant partner. I'm also going to be going live on Instagram, but if you want me to see your comments, you're going to have to come to YouTube because this is where I see all of the comments. All right, so I'm going to break down what you can expect from this video. First, we're going to be defining each type. Which type you have a conflict avoidant partner and you have the opposite type of partner. Then we're going to identify each of their fears. And then finally, we're going to give you a strategy for conflict resolution. So if that is something that you are interested in, this is definitely a video to tune into. I'm going to go ahead and set it up so I can see, make sure I'm online on Instagram, and it's looking like I am. Awesome. Okay, perfect. So we're going to be getting started. I did a post a while back. Typically, I do just dating advice, but I'm doing a little bit of relationship advice and mixing it up a bit because a lot of people have said, hey, I'm now in a relationship. I took your advice. I have a boo, and now I need a little bit of help. So I'm going to see how this video goes, depending on how you guys respond to it, how much you guys like it. And give me feedback, then I will be doing more. I plan on doing a whole series on conflict resolution if this is something that you guys show me that you are interested in. All right, so let's break it down. The very first, I'm going to start out with the person who is not conflict avoidant. And full honesty, that is me. This would be a conflict engaging or a conflict confrontational person. All right, so I've got these little things on here. Okay, got to remember to click them. So conflict engaging, which I prefer that because conflict confrontational sounds like, a negative thing. But this is a person who is comfortable addressing issues directly and sees conflict as just a necessary part of communication and it's problem solving. It is nothing negative. It would be like saying, hey, I don't know how to put this dryer in. Let me figure this out. It's not an emotional situation for that person. It's very matter of fact. Now, I will say I wasn't always this way. I used to interpret conflict in a relationship as something negative and alarm bells would go off. But we're going to talk about that person, that personality, or that conflict style in a bit. But for now, we're talking about the conflict engaging partner. Okay. So this person is very direct. They are very open about their concerns and they don't shy away from difficult conversations. They are very willing to express their emotions, what they're feeling. They are willing to express their opinions, even if the result is disagreement. They're okay with that. The way that they find resolution is through discussion. So this is a necessary means to an end, and they really, as much as possible, they avoiding situations and issues, and they avoid suppressing them. They want to get it out there in the open. Let's deal with it. Let's tackle it. They are very comfortable with confrontation, and they actually see it as something that strengthens relationships. Okay. Contrary to what it appears to the other person a lot of times, which is, oh my God, you're always bringing up issues. You're always focusing on problems. You've nothing good to say, right? That could be the appearance. But the reality is they see that addressing issues head on actually strengthens the relationship. They value clarity and closure, and they hate unresolved tension and ambiguity. For me, when something is unresolved, I actually feel anxiety in my body. Okay. I feel nervous energy. I can't focus. How many of you watching identify as conflict engaging? If you're conflict engaging, let me know in the comments. You could say engaging, or you can write out conflict engaging. I know there's a lot to write. I'm curious to know who is conflict engaging and conflict avoidant, because I did a poll a couple of days ago and we had mostly conflict engaging on my page, which is not surprising because women tend to be, from what I've seen, conflict engaging. Okay. Now, in an extreme case, because not all conflict engaging people are just great communicators. Sometimes they can come across as being argumentative. They can come across as being overly aggressive or impatient with people who need space before discussing an issue. All right. So we don't always appear like angels, and people who are in a relationship with us don't always see this as a positive attribute. Okay. But what I do want to talk about, oh, I forgot to put up my little thing. So these were the traits of a conflict engaging partner. Now, the fears that we have are, oops, I put a little reminder there. A fear that we have is that we are being rejected. So if we try to talk about a subject and our partner is not only willing to, but excited to have the conversation, we feel rejected. Not just the conversation rejected, like we feel rejected and we feel disconnected from our partner. Almost like if you were, out in the wilderness somewhere and you were physically separated from your partner and all you had were walkie-talkies and the walkie-talkie died, or you're on your cell phone and nowhere to charge it and your cell phone died, you would feel disconnected from your partner. This is how a conflict engaged partner feels when they are not resolving things. Okay. One of the worst things you can do to a person who is a conflict engaged person is to say, we're not going to discuss this conflict. So one of the things that you're going to need to understand, and by the way, like I said, this is going to be a series. If you guys appreciate this video, I'm going to be talking about how to cope when you have a partner who is conflict avoidant. So the person who's conflict engaged, it is difficult to deal with a partner who is conflict avoidant. And it feels like that person doesn't love you. It feels like they're rejecting you. It feels like they're disconnecting from you. And so I'm going to share some tips in a future video. Otherwise, this video will be super long on what you can do to get past your icky feelings. Because full disclosure, for me, I have not always dealt with that angst well. I have not handled it well. More times than not, I handled it badly. And this is why I wanted to do research on this topic, because I found there are a lot of people in my shoes. Okay. Okay. So now let's get into the topic that we've been talking about, a conflict avoidant partner. What does a conflict avoidant partner do? Well, they prefer to withdraw. When there is conflict, they don't go running to conflict and go, oh, here's a chance to solve this conflict. They withdraw. They like to minimize issues. They might say they're picking their battles. They avoid talking about their problems directly. And what happens a lot of times, like I said, is this leads to unresolved tension with their partner. But that's what they need to do to feel good inside. Sometimes partners who are conflict avoidant will feel the need to constantly please their partner so that they can maintain their peace, even if it's at the expense of their own needs. So you hear people say, oh, I just want peace. I really value peace. I really value peace. A lot of times that peace is in comparison to conflict. So they see peace as I either have peace or I have conflict. They don't see it like the conflict engaging partner does, is this is how we get to peace by discussing these things. They see conflict as opposition to peace. Okay. So let's get into some of their fears. What are they fearing, right? So we, as conflict engaging, we fear disconnect and we're being, dismissed, possibly not even loved. Well, they fear being vulnerable. They don't want to be exposed and opened up in this way. This is outside of their comfort level. They fear not being valued in the relationship. So if there is criticism, what they see as criticism, they worry, oh my God, my partner's not happy with me. I'm not valued. They don't value me. If they're bringing this up, that means they don't value me. Okay. Thank you. I see your comment. They might fear losing their independence. Okay. Why are we having to do all this stuff together? Let me handle it in my way. And so those are fears. They also have fear of confrontation. There might be anxiety or even a small panic attack if there's a thought that the disagreement could escalate. Okay. So they're thinking, you know what? I do want to bring up some stuff, but if I do, man, this could just hit the roof. You know what? I'm not going to bring it up. I'm not going to really say what I feel because if I do, it's going to blow up. And there's a chance that in their childhood, conflict was not resolved in a healthy way. There could have been a parent who blew up, and it could start out something so small, but then it just blew up into something massive, or maybe there was physical violence or abuse. And so now they associate conflict, even the smallest conflict, as having the potential to escalate. So those are some reasons. As you can imagine, people pleasing tends to go with conflict avoiding people. I don't want to say anything to Aunt Becky because it's going to turn into a whole thing. So you know what? I'll just help her move. I'll just spend my one Saturday off helping her move because I don't want to deal with the elephant in the room, whatever, right? They're going to end up people pleasing to avoid conflict. And with their partners, especially, they excessively agree with their partner and prioritize their partner's needs over their own. But guess what? That leads to major resentment. And unfortunately, the other partner is clueless because they're like, but you didn't even tell me. I didn't even know that you weren't in agreement because you actually said the opposite. You said you were okay going to help Aunt Debbie move. Okay. They have a hard time expressing their emotions. They might struggle with sharing their feelings, especially the negative ones. And this causes them to struggle with emotional intimacy with their partner. It's very hard for them to express themselves. Is this making sense, you guys? Those of you watching, this is making sense what I'm saying? Okay, this is like heavy on the information side, but I have a lot I want to pack into a short time. As I mentioned, they might downplay how serious something is, or rationalize certain behaviors or things because they just want to avoid confrontation. And overall, they just experience stress. They feel overwhelmed. It's just too much. Kind of like I imagine, loud noise, and you're just like, oh, I just needed to stop, or blinding light, like, oh, I just need to turn it off. It's too much. So they tend to have a lot of bottled up frustration, bottled up, because they're not releasing it. And then there's resentment because their partner, it's like they're always getting their way. Well, yeah, because I'm always agreeing to things, but I have to agree to things to avoid confrontation. So you see this vicious cycle. And it seems like you always have these two. So in my past marriage, I was very conflict avoidant. I was terrified of it. And in my mind, conflict meant rejection is coming. Conflict meant rather abandonment is coming. I just know it's around the corner. I know there's going to be a consequence if I am not performing correctly. If I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing and now I'm being called out because there's this conflict, now something negative is going to happen. But I was with somebody who was very, very okay with conflict resolution. And so it's interesting how it seems like there's always that dynamic. Same thing in relationships. You have an anxious attachment with an avoidant attachment style. It's very interesting how that polarity comes together. Okay. Oh man, I keep forgetting to use my cool little So we define each type, okay, each partner type. We just finished identifying their fears, and now we are going to focus on strategy for conflict resolution. Okay, y'all quiet in the comments today. We're going to focus on a strategy for conflict resolution. So I'm going to give you 14 tips for setting your conflict avoidant partner up for success. Okay. So if you just tuned in, we're talking about people who there's an issue. One partner wants to talk about and tackle it head on. The other one wants to avoid it like the plague. Let's just brush it under the rug and keep it pushing. Let's have good vibes today. Okay. So you have these two different personality types. So the person who wants to talk about it, they can't just move on. So how do we have a situation where both people can feel comfortable? All right. So what's really important is to make the conflict avoidant person feel less intimidated. Okay. So we want to put them at ease, help them to not have distress internally. And so what you're going to do is you are going to create an environment that feels safe, that feels collaborative versus like me against you, and non-confrontational. So here are 14 ways that we can do that. All right, let's get into it. So creating a safe emotional environment. You want to avoid making your partner feel like they are being judged or cornered. So starting with your tone, if you use a calm tone and invite them into a discussion, and you emphasize that your goal is trying to connect with them and not to assign blame or accuse. I like to use eye contact, putting maybe my hand on their hand or their leg, and saying, hey, I'd like to talk with you, or excuse me, I invite them into the discussion, but with a calm face, calm voice, putting maybe a hand to just reinforce we're connecting. This is not a negative situation. The second thing that you want to do is time the conversation well. This one is massive because I like to resolve conflict, and it's thrilling because to me that means we're going to get to the end. We're going to get to the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow by going through conflicts. I want to do it immediately. And so it is very difficult for someone with my personality type to do this, time the conversation well, but it will set you up for success with your partner. So you want to choose a moment where your partner is relaxed and open to conversation. So if you're already in a stressful situation, if you're in an emotionally charged situation, probably not the best time to have the conversation. You want to wait until they're relaxed, when you're both calm and there is no immediate pressure to resolve the situation. So you can let them know in advance that you want to talk so they can mentally prepare. But I would avoid using the term, we need to talk, okay? Because that will just stress me out. My mom used to text me that. I'm like, oh, and then it would be something simple like about holiday cards. And I'm like, oh my God, my brain went to the worst case scenario, okay? So this is what you can do. And this is part of strategy number 3, ease into the conversation. Ease on in. So you can start with a positive affirmation. It's always great. So you could say something like, hey, so-and-so, I appreciate how supportive you have been. And I would love your thoughts on something that's on my mind, right? You're inviting them to share their thoughts. Sounds so much more unarming than I got to talk. I have an issue I want to talk to you about. So you just say, I want to get your thoughts on something that's been on my mind. This is going to set a collaborative tone rather than a confrontational one. I picture 2 people facing each other versus a teacher in the front of the class talking to a student. Okay. Another example is, hey, I really appreciate how much you care about me and our relationship. And I want to discuss something because I really value our connection and I want to make sure we stay strong. Let's get into number 4, conflict strategy number 4, reassure your intentions. So a lot of stuff that's happening is happening subconsciously. So if we can address things before they even start, we can really head off a lot of problems down the road. Okay. So you're going to be letting them know that you value the relationship and that your intention is to strengthen it and that you're not trying to make them uncomfortable. You're not trying to make a point. You're not trying to beat them over the head, and you're not blaming your partner, and you're not looking to argue, because a lot of times that's what the other person thinks. Oh my God, they're just trying to argue. You love to argue. Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. Love to argue. It's just fun, but no, it doesn't have to be an argument. So you could just say, I just need to share this because it's been bothering me and I want us to be on the same page. It's not about pointing fingers. You're not trying to create tension. I just want us to figure it out together. Okay. And for some of you might be thinking, oh my God, these are so many steps and I can't believe I have to go through all of this. But 2 things, you have to see your partner as not having the tools. And if you could see your partner as not having the tools, it almost becomes an honor to be able to give them that tool that they need to be able to feel calm. Because if you are struggling with something and you need your partner to step up so that you can feel good, feel at ease, you would want them to do that and not look at it like a burden. So 1, if you change your perspective on it, and 2, you've got hope now. There's a strategy, because before it just wasn't working. Clearly it wasn't working with all the thousands of comments that I've seen on certain posts that have been popping up on my feed. This is a problem for a lot of people. Okay, so focus on the fact that this is going to work. Okay, so the next strategy, number 5, you want to use I statements. You want to use language that centers the information about your feelings instead of the accusations, right? You don't want them to feel like they're in a court of law and they're going to have to defend themselves. So you want to express what your concern is, but without placing blame or pressure. So you might say, okay, well, what does that look like? What are some examples? Well, I've written them down for you. You could say, for example, I've been feeling a little overwhelmed about blank, and I wanted to share it with you, so I don't feel like I'm holding it all in. So you're saying, I feel overwhelmed. Nowhere in there are you saying you're not taking the load. So I've been, for example, I've been really struggling with how we divide up the household tasks, and I want to make sure that we both feel good about it. What are your thoughts? What items do you think I should be tackling for the most part? What items do you think you should be tackling? And, does that split work for you? Does that seem like it would be a good and fair split or reasonable considering our schedules, what have you? Instead of saying things like you never, you always, you only, you could say, like you never listen to me. You would say, I feel unheard when we don't talk about these things. Or I feel disconnected when we don't talk through our concerns. Instead of saying you never want to address issues, you always shut down. You. Just say, I feel disconnected. I don't know how to deal with this. I feel disconnected when we can't come to an agreement on something or we can't walk through it with a conversation. Another tip, which is strategy number 6, is to be mindful of your tone and your body language. So I kind of referenced your tone earlier, but body language is really important. You want to make sure you don't have your arms crossed. You want to catch yourself raising your voice. This can feel very intimidating. And so really practice speaking slower and speaking softer. Making eye contact, you really can connect with them and show that I'm speaking to you from a place of love. And there are a lot of nonverbals that could be on both sides. So let's say if the person's feeling defensive, they could be looking away. They could be looking down at their phone. They could be rolling their eyes. And so when you're tuned in and you're making eye contact, especially if it's tough and maybe you hold hands, this will help you to feel more connected in these moments and less intimidating. You also want to make sure that you invite their perspective. And again, this is done through word choice. So you say things like, well, what do you think? Have you noticed this too? So this takes you from being in this, I'm in the control seat and I'm telling you what's happening. You're saying, this is my take. What do you see? How do you see it from your vantage point? I'm standing on this side, so I have this vantage point. But from your vantage point, how do you see it? What do you see on your side? And you'll be surprised sometimes what they see or what they even say. So now there are two, when I've been doing research, there are two kind of conflicting suggestions when it comes to this. One could be focus on your connection and don't focus on resolution. And this is good if you're just sharing your heart. You're just sharing how you feel. In this situation, you would emphasize that you're not pushing for an immediate answer. You're not looking for immediate decision, but you just want to be understood and you're trying to understand them. So this takes the pressure off of their partner feeling like they have to perform. You just say, I just want to hear you out and I want to be heard. The other option is to keep it solution focused. And I feel like this one is more successful. This one is, for me, has worked more. So if you focus on a solution, especially if you are dealing with men, because from what I've seen, it seems like the dynamic tends to be conflict engaging are women and conflict avoidant are men. Okay. And this is without judgment. This is just my assessment. But men love a solution, especially if you're giving them the solution or asking for them to come up with a solution. Then if they are conflict avoidant, they can take all that stress and anxiety and use it to come up with a solution. So if you are talking to a person who's conflict avoidant, they feel like, oh my gosh, there's negativity. And if they're focusing on the problem and focus on a solution, it feels so much better than what feels like just rehashing the problem. We're just going around and around and around talking about the problem. So what you could say is, what do you think we could do together to make this easier for both of us? Okay. Or you could focus on, problem solving by saying this way. I was thinking that we could try da 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 da. I want to hear what you feel. What do you think about that? So going back to like the household chores, I was thinking that because I tend to get up first, maybe I do breakfast, but then you get up later, so maybe you clean the dishes and put the stuff in the dishwasher. Or I was thinking that I wash the laundry and you fold it and put away. What do you think about that? And they might say, great, that works for me. Or no, I don't like this idea. I'd rather do XYZ. But you want to make sure you ask them, how do you feel about that? What works for you? This is crucial. Okay. And I share the last two tips I share in my course. Very important when you're understanding communication with men. You want to keep things short and constructive. All the extra narrative, it's just like, they're not hearing it. They're not checking for it. And so you want to make sure that you're keeping things very short and concise. So try to stick to 1 or 2 points so you don't overwhelm them with a lot of emotion and a lot of information. So think about this. Have you ever filled out a form and it said, like 200 characters, that's the max? Well, imagine trying to take your issue and bring it down to, 200 characters. Like you might actually do that. You might go to ChatGPT and say, I'm feeling this and I'm feeling this. How can I break this down to 2 sentences? Shorten that bad boy to the meat and the potatoes. Okay. So you can get to your point. This is really going to help them not feel overwhelmed, because if they're feeling on fire emotionally, they're going to want this to end as quickly as possible. So you keeping it short makes it end quickly and you're going to feel heard. Number 10, you want to check for triggers. Pay attention to patterns in their behavior. Identify what seems like they're triggering them to be avoidant. And this will let you adjust your approach to feel less threatening. So I found in one relationship, there were certain words that were a problem for my partner. They were words that for me were completely benign and just thoroughly expressed what I was trying to say. But because of previous things in his life or ways that people use that word, it was on another level. So, for example, let's say a Black man might have a different reaction to the word aggressive, or someone saying they're being aggressive, than a non-Black man. Okay. And so, a Black woman might take offense to a certain term because of how she's been stereotyped or things like that. So you want to see what those things are. And it's not that you're intentionally trying to do something bad or negative or hurt them, but you have to learn your partner. So when you start to see them, pay attention to the nonverbals. When they start to fidget, when they start to look away, when they start to roll their eyes, when they sigh, when they click their tongue, when they start to be condescending, instead of getting angry and say, ew, why are you being rude? Ask them, did I provoke you in some way? Did something that I say cause you to feel upset? And if you are able to be gentle, the Bible says a soft answer turneth away wrath. If you're able to immediately notice the difference, which women were very intuitive, you notice the difference and you don't get combative and hit them with your masculine, you hit them with your soft feminine and say, is there something I could have phrased differently? Because it seems like I might have struck a nerve, or it seems like I might have poked the bear without realizing it. Pay attention to those triggers. Those telltale signs are definitely going to be there. Okay. Number 11, acknowledge their perspective. Okay. So if you are talking, and I'm just going to use the he pronoun because it tends to be guys a lot in my experience. If the guy hesitates and he's not really giving you what you think he should be giving you, you can affirm that you value his thoughts. And you could say, I know it's not easy to talk about this stuff, but your opinion really matters to me. I value it. Okay. That way he doesn't feel like I just need you to talk because I'm asking you to talk. This also goes along with it. Number 12, and we're almost to the end with the 14. Number 12, respect their need for space. This is such a difficult thing for me and probably most people who are conflict engaging, because a need for space, we then start to feel that distress. So it's so ironic. The conflict avoidant person feels the when they're going through it. And we, as the conflict engaged, feel that that pressure when they walk away. So when they need space, we hear this is not going to get resolved. It's just suspended in the air. Now I just got to walk around this elephant in the room. But if your partner asks for time to process, allow it and do so without resentment. That means no attitude. That means no, nonverbals, all that stuff. And just reassure them this is going to take this is going to be a process. It's not going to be overnight. And inside, you're probably cussing in your head, right? But on the outside, you say, I understand your need for space, and I'm here when you're ready to talk. Side note, I will be doing a video on what to do if your partner uses this as a way to just shut down the conversation. Let me know in the comments if you've ever experienced that, where they're like, oh yeah, we'll talk about it later. And then later never comes, right? It magically never comes. It never shows up on the calendar. Later is just always later. So I'll do a video about that if you guys express in the comments that is something that you have experienced. And so that brings me to number 13, be patient. It takes a lot of patience. If your partner shuts down and withdraws, you have to stay calm and resist the urge, which you will have it, to push for an immediate response. You're going to let your partner process it in their time and then gently revisit this later on. Okay. So you could say like, oh, it's okay if you need time to think about it. We don't have to solve it right now. I just wanted to start the conversation. I just wanted you to know where I was feeling, and then we can come back once you've had a time to collect your thoughts and think it through. Okay. Last one, you will be having a lot more wins, so start to celebrate them. Celebrate them even if they are small wins. So acknowledge his effort when he engages in the conversation or she engages in the conversation, even if it's brief, even if you thought this was going to be a nice, juicy 20-minute conversation and it was just a quick few sentences. If he is engaging with you and interacting with you, express gratitude for that. Okay. You could say things like, thank you for listening. And I know these conversations aren't easy for you, but I really appreciate you being there or being here for, with me on this. Okay. So like I said, I will do what if they never bring it up video later. Speaking of other videos, I'm going to be doing in the series, why there's so many men who are conflict avoidant, what, causes that. We're going to get into role playing. So I gave you some examples of, lines that you can say, but getting into role playing especially helps me seeing what that looks like what they might say on their end, what you're going to say on your end, different types of situations that can come up that you could relate to. Like I said, I'll do a video on role playing. And then finally, how to work through your own stuff. So speaking to the emotionally engaged person, how to regulate your emotions when you're feeling all these negative feelings like my partner doesn't love me, they don't care, and you might feel like I do on fire when you're not going to get that solution right away. All right. So putting that series together, again, based on the feedback that I get, I have a comment, what to do if he takes a couple of days to come back, and what to do with the anxiety until then. I just saw the comment, and that's exactly what I'm going to be doing in the series. So make sure you are subscribed to my channel. If you haven't already, subscribe to my channel so that you will get to see that video when it comes. I will film it maybe either tomorrow or Monday, but I'm going to be putting that together, and then I'll make it a playlist so that if you are watching this after the fact, you can watch all of the videos. Okay. But please let me know in the comments if this video was helpful. This is different type of content than I normally do. I usually just stick to dating when you're out there and you're meeting your person. But like I said, so many of you said, hey, I'm in relationships now, I'm engaged, or I just got married. And so wanted to test the waters and see if you guys appreciate relationship advice. Hope I didn't go too deep because there was a lot of information to unpack. Before I go, I have to let you know about my 8-week coaching program. It is called the Dating Manual, and the next group starts at the end of February. So enrollment is open now, and I have put the link in the video description on YouTube. If you're watching on Instagram, you can either go to YouTube or go to the link in my bio on Instagram and click the Dating Manual. Set up a discovery call to see if it is a good fit for you. I have gotten incredible feedback from the ladies who have gone through the program. We even have one who is now engaged. Quite a few others are in committed relationships. This is a very powerful program. It is not fluff. We go deep. We have worksheets every week. We have live group sessions. And there's so much that I want to tell you about it. But if you're interested in becoming the best version of yourself, understanding men, learning how to vet, and knowing how to have success in a relationship, then sign up for a discovery call, and I will go over what we go over and what the investment is. Oh, good. Mandalisa says, yes, it was. Thanks. Nice. I was a little nervous because this is a detour from what I usually go over. So make sure you sign up for that. One last announcement before I go. Singles database is launching next week. So if you signed up, I started it last year and then put a pause in it. So you might have signed up last year. Check your email. See if you have an email from me. If you signed up, you got an email from me. If you recently signed up, I'll be sending another email today, but it's information about the Zoom call that's happening Wednesday. I want you guys all to be live on the call so you can hear what's happening. This is a very collaborative effort. You guys might have some suggestions that I didn't think of, but I am excited to launch this database and show the men of Youngster Nation. They got a sneak peek and they were thrilled. They were thrilled to be able to go through and just pick, their ideal girl based on the data. And then we're going to move forward and launch it. So I'm beyond excited about that. Check my story on Instagram for how to get on the database. And then actually I'm going to add the link here as well on Instagram to the description. So I'll add that real quick once this ends. All right, guys, please smash that like button. If you haven't followed my channel, hit subscribe. Those of you watching on Instagram, do me a favor, come on over to YouTube and click like too, so YouTube knows you enjoyed this. I will link it in my story. All right, guys, I will talk to you later.